Welcome to my session on object oriented design and programming. This is the continuation of my previous session on event handling in Java. In my previous session, we have learned what is an event, how to handle the event using delegation event model, what are the event classes in Java, event sources, and the different event listeners in Java. So, in this session, we will be covering the contents such as how to handle the keyboard events, how to handle mouse events and action events, what is an adapter class, and some of the university questions. First, let's see how to handle keyboard events. When an input is received from the keyboard, a key event is generated. So, first you have to identify what is the type of event that is generated when you're using a keyboard, right? So, the key event is generated when an input is received from the keyboard. The key event is present in the class java.awt.event package. So java.awt.event package is very important while handling events. So key event is the event that is generated when you receive an input from the keyboard. There are two methods associated or defined in this class. The first method is get key char. Get keychar returns the character that was entered using the keyboard. So get keychar, it returns the key name that is pressed. Now get key code returns an integer number which is the value of the key pressed, or it returns the key code which is an integer number for the value of the key pressed. Now, the listener that is associated with this event, a notification is always sent to a listener whenever an event is generated. So, the listener that is associated with key event is the key listener. So, we have to register key listener in our program, right? So, to register the key listener, we use the method add type listener. Here the type is key. So add key listener, this means this is the current object. Now add key listener, this means you are registering the key listener. The next step is we have to implement key listener methods, right? So whenever an event occurs, the notification is sent to the key listener. The key listener will receive the event and it has to process the event. It has to handle the event. How? So we have to implement the methods present in this listener. The listeners are normally interfaces which contain abstract methods. So when you use an interface, you have to give the implementation or definition of the methods present inside the interface. Now you have to know how many methods does the key listener contain. So the key listener contains three methods: key pressed, key released, and key typed. So these are the three methods associated with key listener. So when you implement key listener in your program, you have to give the definition or you have to give the implementation for all the three methods, and all the three methods except the object of event as the parameter. So the parameter to these three methods are nothing but the object of key event. Now when do you use a key pressed? So when an event is notified, the corresponding or the appropriate method from the listener is executed. So let's see when key pressed is executed. So key pressed is invoked when a key is pressed. So when you press a key on the keyboard, the key pressed method is invoked. Now key released is invoked when a key is released. Key typed is invoked when a character has been entered, or you can say that when general keys like A to Z or 1 to 9 are pressed or typed. So at that time, key typed will be executed. So these are three methods present in the key listener which you have to implement in your program. So now we are going to write the program for handling keyboard events. So before writing the program, we must know what is the event that is generated and what is the listener. So steps in writing the program is, first you have to register the listener. So which is the listener that is used? Key listener is used. If you register a particular listener, that means you have to give the implementation for its method. For that, you must know what are the methods present inside the key listener. So there are three methods present inside the key listener, and all the three methods accept key event object as the parameter. Now, key pressed, key released, key typed. So you have to give implementation for all the three methods. Now, what is the event? Key event. There are two methods associated. One is get key char and get key code. Now, let's see how to write a program to handle key event. Now, the first step is I'm going to implement the handling of the key event in an applet. So I'll define an applet code, that is a commented applet code. So applet code is equal to simple key, which is the name of the class. The width of the applet is 300 and height is 100. Now I'm imported the required packages. Since I'm handling event, I need to import java.awt and java.awt.event package. Since I'm implementing event handling in an applet program, I have to import the applet package also. Now I'm going to define the class. Before defining class, I would like to mention the three steps. First one, since you're handling the key event, you have to implement key listener in your program. Then second step is you have to register the key listener in your program in the public void init. The third step is you have to give the implementation for all the three methods which are present inside the key listener. And that's it, the program is over. So let's define the simple key class. Since it is an applet class, the simple key extends applet. Now I'm going to handle key event. So I will implement key listener in my program so that the notification is sent to key listener. Now in public void init, I have to register the listener. How? Using the add key listener method. So I'm going to add the key listener. I'm going to register the key listener to the current source, which is the keyboard. Since I've implemented key listener, I'll be giving the implementation for all the three methods which are present in key listener: key pressed, key released, and key typed. So I'm going to define key pressed. So public void key pressed, all the three methods receive key event object as parameter. So in parameter, I'll give key event ke, which is the object of key event, and the implementation that I've given for key pressed is whenever you press a key in the show status, it will print key down. So this is how I define key pressed. Now, secondly, I define key released method. Same. The key event object is the parameter to this method. So whenever I release the key after pressing, in the status bar, it will print key up. The third method that is in the listener is key typed. So this method is used to retrieve the character which is typed, right? So A to Z or 0 to 9. If you press any of the characters, so this key type method will return the character. So to get the character that is typed, we will use the method get key char. So getKeyChar method is used for returning the character that is pressed. But this method belongs to KeyEvent class. So let's use the object of KeyEvent class, ke.getKeyChar, and we'll store it in MSG, the variable MSG which is declared above. Now, if you press more than one character, then you can continuously read using get keychar and concatenate it in MSG. So we'll call the repaint method to paint each character, right? So repaint method is calling the paint method again and again. Now, finally, we have defined all the three methods in the listener class, and then we'll define the public void paint method of the applet, inside which we are going to call the drawstring method for printing the value of MSG. That means you have printed some message in the keyboard, right? So what is it? Let's see using the paint method. So in drawstring, you can print MSG at a particular X and Y coordinate, which has been already initialized to 10 and 20. So this program will print the characters that are typed in the keyboard, right? Now output of the program is, so you get an applet window with width 300 and height 100. Okay, now I have typed some character, right? So when I press a key, it will print key down in the status bar. Since after pressing I'm releasing the key, the final output in the status bar is key up. So key up was set here when the key is released. And finally, it is also displaying the characters that were pressed in the keyboard. So I had typed this is a test which is stored in MSG and it is printed in drawstring. So this is a test is printed on the body of the applet. So this is how you handle keyboard events, key events. The next is how to handle mouse events. So whenever you do mouse operation, the event that is generated is mouse event. A mouse event is generated when a mouse is dragged, moved, clicked, pressed, or released. So you have, again, this event is also defined in java.awt.event package. So you should know what are the methods associated with mouse event class. Now there are two methods, getX and getY method. GetX method returns the X coordinate of the point where the mouse was clicked, and getY returns the Y coordinate at the point where the mouse was clicked. GetPoint method can be used to get the coordinates of the mouse. So these are the two methods that are associated with mouse event. So all the operations related to mouse generate mouse event. Two methods in the mouse, getX and getY methods return the X and Y coordinates, or you can use the getPoint method, which is used for obtaining the coordinates of the mouse. Now while handling mouse events, you have to register a listener, right? So a listener has to be notified about the mouse event. The name of the listener that has to be notified is mouse listener and mouse motion listener. So mouse events are handled by two listeners, mouse listener and mouse motion listener. So you have to register two listeners for handling mouse events, and you have to implement all the methods present in both the listeners. Only then you can handle mouse events. So there are two listeners, mouse listener and mouse motion listener. So you have to add mouse motion listener, and add mouse listener in your program to receive mouse events. Now, what are the listeners for mouse event? So we have already seen the mouse event listeners, mouse listener and mouse motion listener. Let's see what are the methods present in these listeners. So you should implement the methods present in these two listeners in your program, right? So you must know how many methods are there in each listener. So in mouse listener there are 5 methods. Again, mouse motion listener is also an interface which contains 2 methods. Mouse listener has got 5 methods. Let's list out. All the 5 methods will accept mouse event as a parameter. So mouse clicked method, mouse entered method, mouse exited, mouse pressed, mouse released. These are the 5 methods which are present in the mouse listener interface. So if you implement this listener, you have to give the definition or the implementation of all the 5 methods. Okay. So mouse clicked method is invoked when a mouse is pressed or released at the same point. When the mouse enters a component, the mouse entered method is invoked. Mouse exited method is invoked when the mouse leaves the particular component. Mouse pressed, when the mouse is pressed, this method is invoked. When the mouse is released, mouse released method is invoked. So these are the 5 methods which are present in this listener. You have to learn the name of these methods. And similarly, the second listener associated with mouse event is mouse motion listener, which contains 2 methods, mouse dragged and mouse moved. Mouse dragged is invoked when the mouse is dragged. Mouse moved is called multiple times when the mouse is moved. So before writing a program to implement mouse event, let's summarize. You should study this slide. So mouse event is the event that is generated. What are the methods present in mouse event? So in the program, we have to use getX and getY methods to get the X and Y coordinates of the point where the mouse is clicked or the point where the cursor is. There are 2 mouse listeners, as I said earlier. There are 2 listeners for mouse. One is mouse listener. The other one is mouse motion listener. Sorry, the second one is mouse motion listener. Now, mouse listener has got 5 methods: mouse clicked, mouse entered, mouse exited, mouse pressed, and mouse released. You have to give the implementation of all the 5 methods. And the second listener is mouse motion listener. It is written as mouse listener, but it is mouse motion listener, inside which there are 2 methods: mouse dragged and mouse moved. So this is how you write the program to handle the mouse event. You have to give the implementation for both the listeners. So you have to implement 2 listeners in your program. You have to give the implementation for both the listeners in your program. So write the applet code. Applet code is equal to mouse event. Width is equal to 300. Height is equal to 100. Then you have to import the required packages. The class name is mouse events. And since we are implementing the mouse event in an applet program, we will extend the applet class in our program and implement mouse listener and mouse motion listener. Now, since we are implementing 2 listener, we have to register 2 listener. In public void init, you add the 2 listeners, add mouse listener and mouse motion listener. That means to the current object, you're adding the listener. You're registering the listener to the source. Now, since you have registered 2 listeners, you have to give the implementation for the methods in both the listeners. So altogether, there are 5 plus 2, 7 methods for which you have to give the implementation. If you can list out these 7 methods, it's easy to write the program. Otherwise, the program seems to be lengthy. Now, The first we'll implement the methods in mouse listener. There are 5 methods in mouse listener. The first one is mouse clicked. This is invoked when the mouse is clicked. So public void mouse clicked. Each of the methods will accept object of event. So mouse event me is the parameter. Now let's initialize the mouse x coordinate and mouse y. Both are the variables which are declared outside and initialized as 0. Now let's change the value of y to 10. Now whenever a mouse is clicked, let's print the message mouse clicked. We call the repaint method so that it is printed on the screen. Similarly, the second method is mouse entered. Mouse event me. We are going to give the definition for the second method, mouse enter. Whenever mouse is entered in a component, let's put the message as mouse is entered. If you want to print this method, then you have to call the paint method. That's why we are calling the repaint method. Now, when the mouse is exited, we have to define the mouse exited method. Set the message as mouse exited, call the repaint method. Similarly, when the mouse is pressed, now suppose if you want to print a message when a mouse is pressed, you can set the message as down. Suppose along with the message you want to print the x and y coordinates, then you can get the x and y coordinates. Suppose if you want to get the x and y coordinates of the point where the mouse was clicked, then you can use the getx and getY method. me.getx, me.getY method. A mouse x is equal to me.getx method. Getx method is returning the x coordinate. GetY method is returning the y coordinate where the mouse was clicked. Now mouse released. Mouse released is a method that is invoked when the mouse is released. That means you click and you release the mouse. Now me.getx is the saving the x coordinate where the mouse was clicked, and me.gety is again saving the y coordinate where the mouse is clicked, and you're setting the message as up. Now we have implemented all the 5 methods which are present in the mouse listener. Now next step is you have to implement all the methods present in the second listener, which is mouse motion listener. Since we have implemented mouse motion listener also in our program, we have to give the implementation details of the methods present in mouse motion listener also. So public class, mouse dragged and mouse moved. These are the 2 methods which are defined in mouse motion listener. So let's give the definition. You can give any definition inside. Simply print a status, print something on the status, or you can get the x and y coordinates. Mouse dragged. When you're dragging the mouse, you are just saving the x and y coordinates where the mouse is dragged. And you are showing on the status bar that you are dragging the mouse, and the mouse currently the cursor is at mouse x and mouse y coordinate. So y coordinate is stored in mouse y coordinate is stored in mouse y and x coordinate is stored in mouse x. Then you're calling the repaint method. Public void mouse moved is the second method in the mouse motion listener. This method here we have implemented as just printing something on the status bar. So show status moving mouse at a particular x coordinate, get the y coordinate. Okay, so that means you're simply moving the mouse. When you're moving the mouse, along with the moving mouse string, you will also show the x and y coordinates. Now, if you want to display something on the body of the applet, use the paint method g.drawString msg. msg is set in each method, right? Where if you press the mouse, it is pressed down. Down method is set in msg. See, and if the mouse is pressed, msg is set as down. If the mouse is released, msg is set as up. Now, when the mouse is pressed, this output is taken when the mouse is pressed. So, it prints down in the body of the applet and on the status bar. When if you move the mouse, it will print the message moving the mouse at X and Y coordinate, which is 145 and 51. So this is the method that is executed when you move the mouse, and the status bar, it is printing the screen moving mouse at get the X coordinate and Y coordinate, which is associated to mouse event class. So me.getX, me.getY will give you the X and Y coordinate, and it is printing moving mouse at 145, 51, which are the X and Y coordinates. So this is how you handle the mouse events. The program is lengthy, but you just have to know the methods present in the listener. So 7 methods you have to implement in your program. Give some definition for the 7 methods. The next one is action event. An action event is generated when a button is pressed or you select an item from a menu or a list item is double clicked. Again, the method that is defined in the action event is get action command. Now, get action command is used to obtain the command name for invoking the action event. Okay, so there are actually two methods, get action command and get source. Get action command returns the string associated with that component, whereas get source returns an object of the source of event. Okay, so get action command, you will know which is the object that was clicked. Now, the listener associated with the action event is action listener, and you have to register the action listener in your program. So add action listener, this will register the listener. So if you want to register the listener with a particular component, say button, then buttons object dot add action listener will be used for registering the listener. Now, action listener, you should know what are the methods present in action listener. Thank God there is only one method which is defined in the action listener interface, which is action performed. And the method accepts the object of event, which is action event. So, action event is generated when a button is pressed or you select an item from a menu. The method that is related to action event is get action command. Similarly, how to register action listener. The action listener is the listener which is notified about the action event. So you have to register using add action listener this, and you have to implement the method present in action listener, which is action performed method. Now this is how you implement action listener in your program. So the program to handle action event. So in this program, we have implemented this program to handle action events in an applet. So define the applet code. The name of the class is button event demo. So applet code is equal to button event demo. Width is equal to 300. Height is equal to 100. You can give in double quotes also. Then you are importing the required packages. AWT package, applet package, AWT.event package also. Now, public class button event demo. Since it's applet program, extends applet, implements action listener because you are going to handle the action event. Now, when you implement action listener, you have to register action listener where in init method. So now you're going to implement this program for a button click. Okay, so you are dealing when a button is clicked, an action event is generated. So let's create a button. So there is a class called as button which is defined in AWT package. So let's create an object of button b1. Now b1 is equal to new button. This is how you create a button. Just create the object of button class, and you can give the label to the button. If you give OK, that means that will be the label that will be seen on the button. So you created two buttons. One is OK button and cancel button. This is created in the init method. And after creating, you have to add the button B1 and B2 to the applet, and you then register the button with the listener. So source here is the button and the listener is action listener. You have to register the source with the listener. So you have to register the listener in both the buttons. B1 dot add action listener this, B2 dot add action listener this. So in your applet you have two button. One button is labeled as OK, the other one is labeled as cancel. And so you got to deal with the event handling the click on the button. So when you click on the button, what is happening? That's what you're going to handle. So you have added action listener to both the buttons in the init method. So this is how you register the action listener in button B1 and button B2. B1 dot add action listener this, B2 dot add action listener this. Now since you have implemented action listener in your program, you have to give the definition for the method present in action listener. There is only one method present in action listener, which is action performed, which takes action event as the parameter. So let's define public void action performed, action event AE is the parameter to the method. Now let's see. First, let's use the method get action command. Why do we use action command? It returns a string associated with that component, right? So get action command will let you know which button was clicked, whether OK button or cancel button. If you want to know which button was clicked, then you can use get action command. So but get action command is a method of the action event class. So you have to invoke the method using the object of action event. AE dot get action command will return either OK or cancel. Okay, so that is the string associated with the component. So if you click on OK button, AE.getAction command will return OK. If you click on cancel button, AE.getAction command will return cancel. So let's store it in str. Then let's check it if it is equal to OK. If it is equal to OK, let's set the variable MSG which is declared above as OK button is pressed. That means if you're pressing OK button, set the message as OK button pressed. Else if str dot equals cancel, that means if the action command is returning cancel, then it means that cancel button is pressed. So let's set the message as cancel button pressed. Then call the repaint method. Now if you call the repaint method, automatically what will happen? The paint method will be called. So public void paint has been defined in the program, which is calling the drawstring method, and in drawstring method you are printing the value of MSG. So here if you have pressed the OK button, the value of MSG will be OK button pressed. If you press the cancel button, the value of MSG will be cancel button pressed. You have set the value right in action performed method. So if you want to print it, you have to call the paint method. In paint method, just print the value of MSG in a particular x and y coordinate, which is 25 and 60. So this is how you write a program for action event. It is very simple. Implement the action listener in the applet, then to give the definition for action performed, then call the paint method if you want to display something. This is how the output looks. There are two buttons. This is the applet window having a height of width 300, height 100, and there are two buttons, one labeled as OK, the other labeled as cancel. If you click on OK button, I have clicked on OK button, so on the body of the applet the MSG is printed, which is set to OK button pressed. So OK button pressed is printed on the body of the applet. If I click on cancel, cancel button pressed will be printed on the body of the applet. So this is how you handle action events. Okay, so this is one example for handling action event. So the program is very simple. You have to implement action listener in your program, register the button with the action listener, give the implementation for action performed, just paint use the paint method to print the output. Now let's see what is an adapter class. Now, adapter class provides the default implementation of listener interfaces. So, listeners are notified whenever an event occurs. So, when you implement a listener in your program, if the listener is having 5 methods, then for all the 5 methods, you have to give the definition or the implementation in your program, right? So, so to avoid this, Java also provides adapter classes. These adapter classes are also in java.awt.event package. So corresponding to each listener, there is an adapter class. What is the advantage of adapter class? In adapter class, the default implementation or empty implementation of all the methods in an event listener interface is present. Suppose the listener interface contains 5 methods. The default implementation for the listener interface is present in the adapter class. Okay. So listener contains abstract methods. There's no definition for the methods, right? So, but adapter class contains what? Empty implementation. There is body of the method, but then nothing is there. That is, there is an implementation which is empty. Okay, so default implementation is present in adapter classes. Now what is the advantage of using the adapter classes? Corresponding to each listener interface, if you have an adapter class, you can save the code. How? If you inherit the adapter class in your class, you'll not be forced to provide the implementation of all the methods of listener interface, right? If you use a listener interface, you have to give the implementation. You are forced to provide the implementation of all the methods in listener interface. But instead of implementing listener interface, if you are inheriting adapter class, then you will not be forced to give the implementation of all methods. Only the suitable methods or the required methods, appropriate methods, can be overridden or redefined in your class. For all other cases, the empty implementation will work. For example, the mouse motion adapter class has got two methods: mouse dragged and mouse moved. So if you use mouse motion listener has got two methods: mouse dragged and mouse moved, right? So if you use this listener, you are forced to give the implementation for these two methods. But if you use mouse motion adapter by inheriting in your class, then you are not forced. You can define any one method, whichever is suitable, and leave the other method. It will work fine without any compilation error because the empty implementation is provided in the mouse motion adapter class, right? So you are not forced to give the implementation for all the methods present in the listener interface if you are using adapter classes. So if you are interested only in mouse drag events, then you could simply extend mouse motion adapter and override the mouse dragged method. The empty implementation of mouse mode method would handle the motion events for you. So the adapter classes are found in java.awt.event package, java.awt.dnd package, javax.swing.event package. One example is window adapter, which is present in java.awt.event package. Drag source adapter is an example present in awt.dnd package. Mouse input adapter is an example of a adapter class present in javax.swing.event package. Now, corresponding to each listener, there is an adapter class, right? So java.awt.event class event package contains the following adapter classes. Some of the adapter classes examples are: window adapter is the adapter class corresponding to window listener. Mouse listener, corresponding to mouse listener, there is a mouse adapter class. Key listener, there is key adapter class. Mouse motion listener, mouse motion adapter class. You don't have to implement these listeners. Instead of that, you can extend this adapter class to your class and can define only the suitable methods. You are not required to give the implementation of all the methods. That is the only advantage of using the adapter classes. Now, these are the KTU university questions that were discussed, that we've already discussed. So, what is event handling? These are the important questions. Please go through these questions and prepare for your university question. I hope you understood my session. If you have any doubts, you can get back to me. You can comment to me or get back to me. Thank you.